A scene that will capture these extraordinary times will play out today in the House of Commons. Only 32 MPs will be there. It's just a tiny fraction of the usual number, spreading themselves out among the government and opposition seats. Their goal to pass the Trudeau government's pandemic aid package and to do it quickly. The legislation has financial help for Canadians who are out of work, but a contentious part of the bill caused some political pushback from the opposition, and that caused the government to back down. Let's go to Janice McGregor, who's in Ottawa, to begin our coverage this hour. And let's start with that late-night retreat, Janice.
That's right, Heather. Good morning from my living room as I take Justin Trudeau's advice and try to take advantage of mobile technology to speak to you from home instead of going downtown to cover this House of Commons drama in person. But you're right. We did see a flurry of activity late yesterday. Here's why. The government wanted to have a very brief session this afternoon, a few hours of debate, then hopefully have all the parties pass this legislation quickly so they can get on with implementing help for Canadians as part of their COVID-19 response. Legislation was required to do things like enhancing the Canada Child Benefit or the GST credit, offering some income supports for people who don't have access to the employment insurance system, perhaps because they're self-employed, or other measures that they wanted to do, like giving people a bit of a reprieve on paying off their student loans for a few months. But this bill was shown to the opposition parties yesterday under what they characterized as a good faith embargo, so that everybody could review it in advance, have a bit of extra time instead of just being kind of presented with it and being asked to vote on it a few hours later. The problem was the opposition didn't like what they saw when they got into the details of the bill. And by the end of the afternoon, it had been leaked to the Globe and Mail, Global News. Eventually, CBC News got a copy as well. And the problem was, in that bill, there was a measure that gave extraordinary kind of taxation powers to the government. Normally, if you want to raise taxes, you have to come back to Parliament and pass legislation to do so. In this bill, the government would have had the power to take taxation measures through to the end of 2021. Now, that is a period that may extend well beyond, hopefully anyway, this crisis period that we're in now. The opposition was absolutely not having it, insisting that Parliament needs to be the place where the government comes to be accountable for its taxation choices. Andrew Scheer put out a statement last night. I think we've got a little bit of it on a board here. He indicated that he was willing, the Conservatives were willing to cooperate on this, but saying very, very clearly that they would not give the government unlimited power to raise taxes. They would not be allowing the government to have a blank check, even during these times. We were set up for some minority parliament drama, perhaps today, but late last evening, Government House Leader Pablo Rodriguez put out a message on social media, on Twitter. I think we've got the tweet here, seeming to indicate that a compromise has been reached, saying that they will change the bill and that they will fundamentally respect Parliament in all of this. So I guess we'll see, Heather, when the bill is introduced at noon today, whether they've deleted a few lines.
That will be a section of that legislation to look at closely. Overall, though, Janice, what are we in for? It sounds like it's going to be quite the extraordinary scene today in the Commons.
That's for sure. You already talked about how there will be far fewer MPs there than we would normally see to debate key legislation. They're going to sit farther apart as well, respecting social distancing, instead of clustering around the person that's speaking at the time, which is something MPs normally do. Even on days when there's not a lot of them, they sort of want to get in the camera shot and make it look like it's full, even when it's not. There'll be none of that today. It's going to look a bit like a lonely place. For the press gallery, too, we are working in different ways. Normally, we would be all clustered together in our pack in the foyer, waiting to scrum people as they go in and out. There will be none of that today. We, too, keeping our social distance, like myself here. I'll be watching it on TV, but nevertheless, keeping a close eye, Heather.
So, yes, as I keep mentioning on our program, Janice, it looks a little different, our backdrops do right now, as we all adapt, and thank you very much. The coverage is the same. The quality
doing
of
our
info,
best.
they were doing our best.